Welcome to Beyond Betrayal, a story of faith, strength, and redemption, written by Knoll and read by Sarah.
This is the journey of Dr. Rebecca Morales, a doctor from the Philippines, a mother, a healer, and a woman of unwavering faith. Through broken promises and shattered dreams, through nights of silent prayers and days filled with quiet courage, Rebecca finds a path not just to survive, but to rise. Her story is a testament to every woman who has loved deeply, lost painfully, and still believed in the power of hope. So settle in, open your heart, and let the story begin. The beginning. The Manila skyline shimmered in the last light of day, bathed in hues of gold and amber, as if the city itself was holding its breath. From the fourth-floor window of a modest apartment in Sum Pallock, Rebecca Santos stood quietly, mug in hand, watching the world blur beneath the glow of early evening. The scent of rain hovered in the air, earthy, familiar, and aching with memory. Behind her, the sound of clinking cups echoed from the kitchen. Joseph. Even now he was breathtaking. Tall, athletic, with shoulders that filled a doorway and arms that had once held her like she was the only thing in the world worth saving. His skin was sun-kissed kayumangi, a warm bronze that made him look like he belonged under the sun. His jawline was sharp, sculpted like marble. Brad Pitt in a barong, her friends used to tease. But it was his eyes that always undid her. Chinito, almond-shaped, smiling even when his lips weren't, full of secrets and softness. When he laughed, it rippled through a room, disarming and intoxicating. He had been the Richard Gomez of their university, the campus Adonis, the one every girl whispered about in the cafeteria, the golden boy in engineering, always in a varsity jacket, always with a crowd, always smiling that smile that made you feel like maybe, just maybe, you were the only one in the world. And somehow, miraculously, he had chosen her. Rebecca, the quiet nursing student with a Filipino-Korean glow and a smile as soft as sunrise. She had the gentle beauty of Liza Soberano, doe-like eyes framed by lashes too long to be fair, skin that caught light like porcelain warmed by fire, and lips that curved upward even when she was shy. She wasn't the type to command a room, but people noticed anyway. Her beauty was quiet, but unforgettable. They met in college, in a biology lecture where Joseph asked for her notes, not because he needed them, but because he wanted a reason to speak to her. He used to watch her from across the classroom. She used to pretend not to notice. One study session turned into two. Two turned into long walks, fishballs by the gates, arms brushing, hearts racing. When he looked at her, really looked at her, she felt seen in a way that terrified and thrilled her. He called her my lucky star. She called him my always. They were the couple everyone envied, beauty and brains, chemistry and commitment. Professors smiled when they passed by. Classmates rooted for their love story like it was a teleserie unfolding in real time. When Joseph proposed, kneeling with trembling hands in the university garden, whispering, "Ikaw lang, ikaw habang buhay," she had cried before saying yes. They were married a year later in a small church in Antipolo, her white gown brushing against the marble floor, his barong glowing against his skin. It wasn't grand, but it was perfect. Their vows were clumsy, heartfelt, sacred. They dreamed of a house by the sea. 2 children, a golden retriever named Lucky, a life built with late nights, shared dreams, and the kind of love that aged gently. And for a while, that's what they had. Their first child was born during a storm, their second during another. Joseph always said the rain was their blessing, ulan ng biyaya. They laughed about it as they sat on the hospital bed, fingers laced, skin damp with sweat and tears. But blessings can feel like burdens when hearts begin to drift. It started with late nights, extra hours, business trips, overtime. Then came the whispers, the phone calls behind locked doors, the new scent on his shirt. And then, like lightning cracking through silence, came the photo. She was scrolling through Facebook while the adobo simmered and the children played in the other room. It was a Thursday. Ordinary, forgettable, until it wasn't. Joseph. Her Joseph. In Baguio, standing beside a girl who looked like she had never known heartbreak. His arm was around her waist, her face tucked against his shoulder. His smile was the same one he used to give Rebecca once upon a time. Weekend escape with this one hard eyes? Her fingers went numb. The air in the room seemed to vanish. The bubbling stew, the clatter of toys, even her own breath. They all fell silent. He walked in later that night like nothing had happened. "Traffic sa EDSA," he muttered, tossing his bag on the couch. She stared at him, at the man who once wept at the altar, the man who called her his whole world. She didn't ask. Not yet. The next weekend, another photo, this time in Tagaytay, then Boracay, a pattern of betrayal dressed up as romance. The girl was always the same, young, polished, untouched by exhaustion. Rebecca stopped pretending not to know. When she finally asked, Joseph barely looked at her. "You're being paranoid," he said, shrugging. "She's just a friend." But he didn't stop. And that, more than the lies, was what broke her. She told her friends, Mara, Leanne, Pia. "Rebecca," Mara said, gripping her hand, "Hindi mo ito kasalanan, pero ikaw ang nasasaktan. Leave." Rebecca couldn't. Not yet. Her heart still carried the boy from the biology lab, the man who kissed her belly when she was pregnant, the father who sang lullabies to their daughter. She waited for him to come back, not just physically, but to come back to her. Instead, Joseph left for Saudi Arabia. More money, he said. A better future. She nodded as he packed, wondering if he realized how much of her he had already abandoned. That night, with the children asleep, Rebecca sat by the window again. The city blinked beneath her, alive and indifferent. She traced the rim of her coffee mug, the same one she had used since college, the same one he had bought her when she passed the board exam. Outside, the rain began to fall. Inside, something cracked, not loudly, not all at once, just enough to let something new in. Not anger, not grief, but a question. Who am I now if I'm no longer his? Chapter 1. The Quiet Before the Storm. The streets of Sum Pallock were glowing with late afternoon gold, the kind of light that made everything look softer than it really was. The rustling trees outside Rebecca's window whispered of ordinary things: traffic, vendors, children laughing in the distance. But inside the small apartment she shared with her 2 children, everything felt like it was holding its breath. Rebecca stood by the sink, washing rice, the steam from the pot fogging her glasses. Her hands moved on their own, practiced and precise, but her mind was elsewhere, halfway across the world. Joseph hadn't called in 3 days. She told herself he was just busy. Work in Saudi Arabia was demanding. Still, it wasn't like him not to message, not even once. He used to send photos of sunsets over Riyadh, short voice notes of "Miss ko nabosismo," and updates about the heat, the patience, the new food he was trying. But lately, silence. Even the children noticed. "Mama," her son asked the night before, "galit ba si Papa sa atin?" Her heart cracked a little more. "Hindi anak, baka pagod lang." That was the story she told herself too. But she knew the feeling of distance. The kind that didn't come from geography. The kind that grew in the silence between unanswered messages, in the ache between what was said and what wasn't. Rebecca was beautiful in the quiet way women didn't always notice in themselves. Her skin had the smooth glow of kayumangi, kissed by the Philippine sun. Her soft, Filipino-Korean features, doe-like eyes, heart-shaped face, lips curved into a gentle smile, reminded people of Liza Soberano when she laughed. But she rarely laughed now. Once she was the girl who walked the halls of the University of the Philippines in jeans and dreams, and he was the campus heartthrob, Joseph Santiago, tall, athletic, with that golden skin and chinito eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He had the face of a young Brad Pitt, the swagger of Richard Gomez, and the soul, she thought, of a poet. He was her first and only love. They had married too young, some said, but for a while it worked. They built a life, a family. He left for Saudi with promises written in midnight whispers and wedding vows. Now, all she had were the echoes. That night, she sat alone on the small balcony, wrapped in a shawl. The stars blinked above Sum Pallock, but they offered no comfort. Then her phone buzzed. It was him. Just one message. May kailangan akong sabihin. It's important. Can we talk? Her heart pounded in her chest. She stared at the screen, not breathing. She read it once, then again, and again. The words felt heavy, sharp, like a glass teacup about to fall. She typed back, "Okay, what is it?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then nothing. She waited, 10 minutes, then 30, but no reply came. The night air grew colder, and Rebecca, still staring at her screen, began to cry, not loudly, but in that quiet, broken way that only women who still believe in something cry, not because she knew what he would say, but because a part of her already did. Chapter 2, The Woman in Red. The rain came that afternoon, not the violent kind, but soft and insistent, like it was trying to wash away something only Rebecca could feel. She sat on the edge of her bed in her small Sum Pallock apartment, folding her children's laundry. The walls were quiet. Her daughter was napping. Her son was drawing rockets and dinosaurs on scratch paper. In her lap, a faded shirt slipped through her fingers. It wasn't Joseph's. He hadn't left anything behind, not even the scent of cologne on a collar. He had packed everything when he left for Saudi, left no trace, no room for return. What hurt more was not his absence, but the way he'd disappeared without even leaving shadows. The knock on the door broke her stillness. It was Pia, her best friend since UP days, standing with a tub of double Dutch ice cream and that same fierce energy that had once gotten them through thesis week and heartbreaks. "Rebs," she said, stepping in. "Hindi na kita kayang tiisin. You're going out with me tonight. No excuses." Rebecca blinked. "Huh? Hindi ako..." "Ready? I know." Pia grinned. "That's the point. Tara na." It took an hour, some pleading, and the promise of unlimited mojitos, but eventually, Rebecca stood before the mirror in a dress she hadn't worn in years. It was red. Not the red of rage, but of rebirth. Deep, wine-colored, soft against her skin. The dress kissed her figure gently, reminding her she was still a woman beneath the layers of sacrifice. Her hair curled softly at the ends, her lips glossed in plum. She took a breath. The woman in the mirror was not just a mother, not just a wife. She was someone she had almost forgotten, someone who still wanted to feel alive. They arrived at a rooftop bar in BGC, lights twinkling above them like a forgotten constellation. Music floated through the air, jazzy, low, the kind that didn't rush you. The city spread below them, wide and unaware. Rebecca held her glass carefully, the coldness grounding her. She scanned the crowd, not looking for anyone, just trying to remember what it felt like to be among people again. And then she saw him. He stood alone by the bar, rolling up the sleeves of a crisp white polo. He wasn't trying to be seen. That made her notice him more. He looked older than Joseph, early 40s maybe, but his presence was magnetic. Chinito eyes framed by soft crow's feet, jaw lightly peppered with stubble. His smile when he laughed was quiet, confident, like he had nothing to prove. He looked like someone who had lived, fallen, risen, and wasn't afraid of scars. Their eyes met. There was no flirtation, no sleazy grin, just a steady look, curious and clear. She looked away, heart racing. When she dared glance again, he was walking toward her. "Hi," he said, voice deep and warm. "This seat taken?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "I'm Marco," he said, extending his hand. "Rebecca, you look like someone who hasn't been out in a while." She smirked. "Wow, that obvious?" "Only in the way you keep checking the door like you owe someone an explanation." She laughed, caught off guard. Maybe I do. Well, Marco said, I promise not to ask for one. But let me buy you a drink. Just one. Then you're free to run. One drink became two. The conversation flowed easily. Life, books, regrets, dreams. He didn't ask about Joseph. He didn't push. He just listened, genuinely, like she mattered. They danced slowly. His hand never strayed, never pressed. He held her the way a man holds a memory, gently, reverently. I used to want to be a writer, she said. You still can, Marco replied. The page waits. For a moment, Rebecca believed him, but then, in the middle of a laugh, she caught a glimpse of her ring, still glinting beneath the bar lights. She stepped back. Thank you, she said softly. I should go. Marco nodded. You don't owe me anything. But I hope you know, you're still her. The woman before all this. Rebecca smiled, but it trembled at the corners. She left without giving her number. She left because some lines, no matter how lonely, were still sacred to her. That night, back in Sum Pallock, the wind moved through the curtains like a lullaby. Rebecca stood barefoot by the window, her dress still on, her heels discarded. Her reflection stared back. Flushed cheeks, bright eyes, lips touched by something close to hope. She hadn't kissed Marco, but she had remembered herself. She was still here, still unfinished, still alive. Then her phone buzzed. It was Joseph. Video call, please, let's talk. Rebecca stared at the screen, heart caught in her throat. Was this the beginning of forgiveness, or the final unraveling? Chapter 3, The Unraveling. The screen lit up with Joseph's name. Rebecca hesitated. For a second, her finger hovered above decline, but her heart, still stubborn, still hopeful, pressed accept. The call connected. His face appeared. He looked older, leaner. The glow of overseas life hadn't softened him. If anything, it had worn him down in ways money couldn't cover. Hi, he said, voice flat, unfamiliar. Rebecca forced a smile. Hi. There was a silence between them, the kind that carried more weight than words, the kind that came after too many things were left unsaid. Joseph looked away for a second, then back. Maya aminin ako? Her chest tightened. He didn't hesitate, didn't cry, didn't even blink. May iba na ako. Matagal na. We've been living together sa Riyadh. Rebecca sat still. It wasn't the confession that shattered her. It was the ease with which he said it. Like saying he had bought new shoes. Like it wasn't her heart on the other end of the screen. How long? She asked. More than a year, he answered. It just happened. It just happened. As if love were an accident. As if loyalty could slip like soap from one's hands. As if a family could be undone by impulse. Her throat closed, but her tears did not come. Not yet. She simply said, I see. He looked uncomfortable now, shifting in his seat. I didn't want to hurt you, he added. Rebecca blinked slowly. You already did. Joseph sighed, but said nothing more. The call ended with a hollow goodbye, and then the screen went black. Rebecca stared at her reflection in the blank phone screen. Then she dropped the phone and slid to the floor. The sobs came like thunder, loud, shaking, sudden. But they weren't for Joseph. They were for her. For the girl who waited. For the woman who stayed faithful. For the mother who whispered prayers into pillows each night, hoping he would return changed. She wept for the years she lost trying to preserve a picture that had already burned at the edges. She wept for the girl in Sum Pallock who still believed love meant forever. And then, when the tears ran dry, she folded her hands and knelt. Kayo na po ang bahala, Lord, she whispered. I can't carry this anymore. She didn't ask for Joseph to come back. She didn't ask for her marriage to be saved. She prayed for her children, that they would not grow bitter, that they would not carry this pain, that she would have enough strength to carry them both, even as her own heart cracked wide open. She asked for clarity, for courage, for peace. And somehow, in the stillness, something inside her shifted, not healed, not whole, but quieter. The next morning, with her eyes swollen and her voice hoarse, she opened her email. At first, she almost skipped over it. The sender looked formal, Johns Hopkins University, Office of Admissions. She clicked. She read, then read it again. A full scholarship to Johns Hopkins Medical School. Rebecca gasped. She covered her mouth, stunned. After all this? After everything? She had applied half a year ago, on a whim, with a trembling hand and no expectations. She had even forgotten about it. But God hadn't. The tears came again, but this time they were different. Not grief, awe. A door had opened, and this time, it wasn't for him. It was for her. Chapter 4. The Decision. Rebecca sat at the kitchen table in Sum Pallock, the morning light spilling gently through the lace curtains. The scholarship email was still open on her laptop, the words glowing like a doorway to another life, a life she never thought she'd get back. Then her phone buzzed. Marco. She hadn't heard from him since that night in BGC. The soft music, the slow dance, his kind eyes asking about her dreams. She had left that night without goodbye, hoping the moment would fade like perfume in the air. But it hadn't. Now his message was simple. Just checking in, kamusta ka? For a moment her heart warmed, then chilled. She took a breath and typed slowly. Hi Marco. Thank you, I'm okay. Just going through a lot. I hope you're well too. Seconds later he replied, I'm here, Rebecca. If you ever want to talk. Or, if you need someone to remind you who you are. It was gentle, safe, so easy to fall into. But Rebecca looked at the ring still resting on her finger, not out of love, but as a reminder of the vows she once took seriously. She thought of her children, how they looked up to her, how they watched her, learning not just what to say, but how to live. She thought of the broken pieces in her heart, pieces that needed her, not another man, to put back together. She didn't want to be rescued, she wanted to rise. And so she called him. Marco, she said softly when he answered. Thank you. For being kind. For seeing me. He was silent, listening. But I need to do this alone, she said. I can't just run from one broken thing into another, no matter how gentle your hands are. She heard him exhale. I understand, he said. You're choosing your own path, not someone else's. Yes, she whispered, exactly. Then I'll be praying for you, Rebecca, he said, for strength and joy and the courage to keep walking even when it hurts. She smiled through the tears. Thank you, Marco. The line went silent, but peace lingered. That evening she stood outside her parents' house in Sum Pallock, suitcase beside her, plane ticket printed and folded neatly in her purse. She had done it. She had said yes to Johns Hopkins. She would become a doctor, not because she had to, but because she had something to give the world. She wasn't running anymore. She was walking forward. Alone, and it was enough. She looked up at the night sky, the stars winking like secrets above her. Then her fingers tapped again on her phone. She opened a travel site, searched flights. Destination, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. There was a medical conference, an international one, she could attend as a scholarship recipient. She booked a ticket, not for closure, not even to win him back, just to look him in the eye, to say what she needed to say. And then, finally, let go. Chapter 5. The Empty Hotel Room. The desert heat met Rebecca like a silent wall as she stepped out of King Khalid International Airport. Even under the veil of her abaya, the Riyadh sun pressed down on her like an unspoken judgment. She had flown across continents for this, not to beg, not to win him back, just to see him, to speak, to understand how something so sacred had become so disposable. Her hotel room smelled of citrus and linen, clean, impersonal, just like the marriage had become sterile, dutiful, untouched. Joseph had said he would come. "We'll talk, Rebecca. I promise. I want to explain everything." She believed him, not because he was convincing, but because she needed to believe that their history still meant something. The hours dragged. She ordered tea, didn't drink it, stared at the door. Every shuffle in the hallway made her heart jolt. Midnight passed. At 2:13 a.m., she stood at the window and watched the Riyadh skyline blink indifferently in the dark. Somewhere in the city, he was alive, breathing, laughing maybe, just not with her. By dawn, the room had grown cold despite the desert sun rising outside. Joseph never came. She didn't cry. She just showered, pulled her hair into a loose bun, sat on the bed like a ghost of herself. When her phone buzzed, she looked at the screen without urgency. Instagram. Pia had sent her something, a screenshot. Joseph and her, the other woman, standing on a beach in Jeddah, her arms wrapped around his waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. The sea behind them shimmered like a painting. The caption read, "My always, my forever." Rebecca didn't blink. Her phone slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the tile. She stood, walked calmly to the sink, and threw up. The bitter taste in her throat, the shaking of her hands, the burn in her stomach. But her eyes were dry. No tears, just silence, just resolve, blooming slowly in the ruin. Chapter 6. Becoming. The cold air of Baltimore felt like a new kind of silence. In the halls of Johns Hopkins, the weight of grief had no room to breathe. There were lectures, cadavers, rounds, pages upon pages of pharmacology. There were children's drawings taped above her study desk, Lucas's scribbled rocket ships, Mayumi's flowers with smiling suns. Every morning she slipped on her white coat like armor. She did not think of Joseph. She thought of case studies, anatomy labs, and how to keep her children laughing over video calls. She prayed between rotations, whispering to a God who no longer felt far away. "Give me strength not for me, but for them." At night, she studied with her forehead resting against open books. Her tears were no longer for the man who left, but for the woman she was becoming. Tired, yes, but steady. Alone, but never abandoned. She learned how to read chest x-rays, stitch wounds, deliver bad news with soft eyes. Professors began to call her remarkable. Colleagues leaned on her calm. Her children called her Nane the doctor. She passed her boards. She became. And on the morning she received her white coat embroidered with Rebecca Santiago, M.D., she cried, not out of sadness, but because somehow she had done it, on her own, with God, with fire in her belly and tenderness in her hands. She took a photo of herself in her white coat and sent it to Pia. "Natapos din, sa wakas," Pia replied with a voice note. "Tignan mo yung ngiti mo, Rebs. Doktor ka na. Wala nang makakaapi sa'yo. Wala na." Rebecca smiled. For once, she believed it. That night, as she stood by the window of her small apartment, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A pause, then a message. "Rebecca, it's me. I'm back in the Philippines. I miss the kids. I miss us. Can we talk?" "Joseph!" Her chest tightened. She stared at the message. Chapter 7. Ghost Marriage. The sound of the front gate creaking open made Rebecca's heart pause. Joseph was home. No warning. No message. Just the shuffle of his shoes in the hallway, the scent of his cologne drifting through the air like a ghost that refused to be exorcised. He kissed the children, hugged her with a hollow kind of affection, the kind that smelled like duty more than desire. And just like that, he moved back in. For a while it was almost normal. He ate at the dinner table, slept beside her without touching her, asked about school schedules and groceries, but his phone never left his pocket. He smiled more at the screen than at her. At night he would turn away from her and say nothing, like she was a shadow he was tolerating. And still, Rebecca tried. She cooked his favorite sinigang, wore the nightgown he once loved, laughed at his half-hearted jokes. But nothing reached him. The warmth was gone. What lived between them now was a marriage in name only, a hollow performance of what once had been. A ghost marriage, a cruel echo. 32 days after his return, he left again. "May emergency cite," he said. Rebecca didn't argue. She just watched him pack, silent as stone. Weeks passed. Then came the video. It was Pia who messaged her first. "Rebs, I'm so sorry. Don't open it if you're not ready." But she opened it anyway. There they were, Joseph and the woman, laughing, kissing, his voice saying things he hadn't told Rebecca in years. Her bio read, "Taken, 5 years strong." Rebecca didn't cry. She didn't scream. She sat on the edge of her bed, watching the video loop again and again. The same laugh, the same kiss, the same betrayal, served cold through a phone screen. Her hands didn't shake, her eyes stayed dry. There was nothing left to grieve. Not him, not the marriage, just the woman she used to be, before she became someone who accepted less than she deserved. Then the message came. "Rebecca, I think it's time we both moved on. Gusto ko ng annulment." She stared at the screen, and finally she exhaled. Chapter 8. Letting Go. Rebecca stared at Joseph's message one last time before placing her phone face down on the table. Gusto ko ng annulment. No drama, no begging, no drawn-out questions, just the hollow click of a heart finally giving itself permission to stop hoping. She replied simply, "Okay, I'll sign the papers when you're ready." That evening, she brewed herself a cup of salabat, its warmth comforting in her palms. The kids were at her parents' house. The house was still. The silence didn't scare her anymore. It cradled her. She walked to the mirror and caught her reflection, the soft curve of her jaw, the eyes no longer searching for someone who wouldn't come. She didn't look broken. She looked released. Marco called that weekend. She hadn't heard from him in almost a year. "Hi," he said, voice gentle. "Can we talk?" Rebecca smiled. "Of course." They met at the same cafe in Makati where they'd once shared stories about dreams and disappointments. He looked older, some silver at his temples now, but still carried that calm, grounded presence. "I heard about the annulment," he said. "I'm sorry." Rebecca nodded. "I'm not. Not anymore." He took a breath. "I've always wondered what would have happened if you said yes back then." She smiled. "I wonder sometimes too." Silence passed between them, not heavy, not sad, just real. "I still care for you," he admitted. Rebecca reached for his hand and held it gently. "Marco, I care for you too, but I'm not the woman you met on that rooftop, and she's not coming back." He looked down, then up, eyes glistening. "Then this is goodbye?" "No," she said. "This is thank you." They didn't hug, didn't cry. They just sat in that quiet understanding, for what was and what could never be. Weeks later, Pia sent a message. "Rebs, check your email." Rebecca opened the photo attachment. Marco, beaming, arm around a beautiful woman in a soft pink gown, a church in the background, a wedding. She stared at the image, a strange ache blooming in her chest. Not pain, not regret, just a closing chapter. She whispered a prayer. "God bless them, bless him, and thank you for letting me walk away." Chapter 9. The Storm and the Shelter. There was thunder in the house now, not from the sky, but from the heavy slams of bedroom doors and the storm brewing in her son's chest. Lucas had always been her gentle boy. But now, at 14, he walked with clenched fists and eyes that narrowed too often. He didn't say much. But when he did, it cut deep. One night after dinner, the silence broke. "Did you know?" he asked. Rebecca looked up from the dishes. "Know what?" "About Dad. About the other woman." Her heart stuttered. "Yes," she said softly. "For how long?" Rebecca swallowed. "A while." His jaw clenched. "And you just let it happen?" The plate slipped from her hand, clattering into the sink but not breaking. "I tried, Anak. I tried to hold our family together." "By letting him lie? Cheat? Leave us?" His voice cracked, and in it she heard not just anger, but grief. A boy mourning the father he thought he had. Lucas stormed off. His door slammed seconds later. Mayumi cried quietly at the table, tears sliding down her cheeks. That night, Rebecca sat alone in the dark living room, her hands curled around a mug of tea gone cold. Her sobs were silent, tucked into the cushion of her palm so the children wouldn't hear. She had survived betrayal, abandonment, humiliation. But this was the hardest of all, watching her children carry a wound she couldn't heal. Still, she rose. Every morning she made breakfast, packed lunches, wrote little notes in their bags with words like, "Believe in the goodness in you." She waited for the storm to pass, not with resistance, but with presence. And slowly, the wind softened. One afternoon, she found Mayumi in the kitchen, her small fingers tracing a heart into a foggy glass. "Ma?" her daughter said, not turning. "Yes, baby?" Mayumi glanced at her, eyes shining. "I'm proud of you." Rebecca froze, then knelt to the floor and pulled her daughter close, heart breaking open in a different way this time. Not from sorrow, but from grace. Chapter 10. Faith and Fire. The small blue sign outside the gate read, Sum Pallock Community, Women's and Children's Clinic Dr. Rebecca Morales, M.D. It wasn't much, just 2 rooms, a simple waiting bench under the mango tree's shade, and a stethoscope that had listened to more tears than words. But inside, it beat with a fierce heart. Rebecca opened the clinic every morning at sunrise, her hands steady, her faith unwavering. She treated mothers with tired eyes, children with fevers, elders with worn-out knees, each patient a testament to resilience. The gifts she received, a basket of bananas, freshly laid eggs, even a handful of sweet potatoes tied with a string, were treasures more precious than gold. Her life was far from perfect, but it was hers, and in serving others, she found a joy deeper than pain. One afternoon, as she sat beneath the mango tree sipping lukewarm coffee, her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Johns Hopkins. Subject, Outstanding Alumni Award, Recognition for Service to Underserved Communities. Her breath caught, an invitation to return to Baltimore, not as a struggling student or a lost wife, but as a celebrated doctor of the poor. Weeks later, Rebecca stood on a stage bathed in soft light, her children beside her. The auditorium echoed with applause as she accepted the award. In her speech, her voice steady and warm, she said, "Faith carried me through my darkest nights. My children carried me through every battle. They are my greatest inspiration, proof that even in brokenness, we can rise." Across the ocean, Joseph watched the ceremony's broadcast on CNN, stunned, silent. The man who had walked away from promises now saw what he had truly lost. His other woman? She had eloped with a wealthy Arab local, unable to sustain the lavish lifestyle Joseph could no longer provide. Meanwhile, Rebecca returned to the Philippines, this time with her children, their eyes bright with dreams of following her footsteps as healers of the vulnerable. At home, her children wrote a poem for her, words so raw, so honest they went viral on social media, touching thousands. Mama's Song of Strength by Lucas and Mayumi Ramos Morales. Mama, you taught us how to rise. When the world was heavy and the nights were long, you carried us in your quiet arms, singing courage into our hearts like a lullaby. You wore your tears like armor, but never let them fall before us, so we could sleep in the safety of your love, dreaming of a dawn you promised would come. Your hands healed more than bodies. They mended broken spirits and shattered hopes. In every smile you gave, every prayer you whispered, we found the strength to stand again. You showed us that love is fierce, not soft or silent, but bold and unyielding, that a woman's worth is not in another's eyes, but in the fire that burns within her own soul. We saw you walk through storms without fear, not because the winds were gentle, but because your faith was a steadfast anchor, rooted deep in the soil of your heart. Mama, you are the song we carry, the light that guides us home, the quiet hero who chose to live. Not for the past, but for every hopeful tomorrow. For all the times you stayed when you wanted to leave, for all the nights you prayed on tired knees, for being more than just our mother. You are our courage, our home, our heart. And as we grow, we promise this, to carry your strength, your love, your faith, to heal the broken, to hold the lost, just like you taught us, with every beat of our waking hearts. Joseph reached out, asking to come back, but the children answered firmly, "No, Papa. You chose to leave us when we needed a father the most." Mama never walked away. We grew up watching her carry everything alone, with strength, with faith, and with love. You were not there, and now it's too late. Joseph felt the full weight of their words, realizing at last the depth of what he had abandoned. Not just a marriage, but a family, a legacy, and the chance to be the man they once needed him to be. Rebecca smiled quietly, her heart full. She devoted every waking moment to healing the forgotten, nurturing the broken, and lighting a path for those who had lost their way. She was no longer just a doctor. She was a beacon, a woman of faith, fire, and unbreakable hope. Epilogue. Years passed, and the small clinic in Sum Pallock grew, not in size, but in spirit. Dr. Rebecca Morales, MD, became more than a healer of bodies. She became a healer of hearts, a beacon of hope for a community long forgotten by the world. Her children, Lucas and Mayumi, followed her footsteps, not out of obligation, but out of inspiration. They carried her lessons of faith, resilience, and love, ready to serve the poor with the same fierce compassion their mother embodied. Rebecca's life was a testament to the truth she had learned through pain and grace, that a woman's strength does not come from another, but from within, from faith, from purpose, and from the unbreakable love she held for her family and those she served. Joseph was a shadow of the past, a reminder of what was lost and what was found. In the quiet corners of Sum Pallock, beneath the shade of mango trees and the laughter of children, Dr. Rebecca Morales found more than a calling. She found her true self. Her story is not one of perfect endings, but of steadfast beginnings, of choosing faith over despair, courage over surrender, and love over regret. Rebecca's journey reminds us that a woman's worth is never measured by the hands that held her down, but by the strength with which she rises. This is a story of fire in the heart and light in the soul, a beacon for all who dare to believe that even after the deepest heartbreak, the heart can indeed wake up again. May we all carry that fire within us. Thank you very much, and mabuhay. See you next week for another story of strong women. This is your friend Knoll. Bye for now.